Our ancestors came north during the Great Migration when 10 million black people came north and went to California as well for fear of lynching, which makes them refugee. Majority of them settled on the west side and the south side of Chicago and were redlined, given high rent, and poverty-stricken communities discriminated against, denied equal opportunities. After their ancestors were kidnapped and brought here and forced to work for 300 years and give free labor and deny reparations payment for building this country for free for three generations, which means your grandmother, her daughter, and her daughter, which built a big economic gap between civilizations and nations. Some feel giving blacks equal wealth and opportunity would be like giving a weapon to their enemy, who they kidnap, enslave, and force to work for free for 300 years. Residents on the south side of Chicago have decided to file a lawsuit over their unjust and inhumane treatment they feel is a violation of their constitutional rights. Our ancestors were slaves for the English,
upset
not the
with the
Spaniards
individuals
from
who are
Spain
being allowed to cross the borders
Veterans
into America.
are homeless.
Let me make that very
They
clear
didn't
because
get
people get it
600
confused.
million.
We are, however, outraged with the government's response to how the government's response and our elected officials' blatant disregard to the local crisis black families and children are facing now in our city. It is disingenuous and highly disrespectful to come into neighborhoods that have suffered decades of disinvestment, redlining, poverty, and violence to tell them you're taking resources away only to give it to another group of people that you allowed to cross the border illegally. How dare you put these poor people against us, especially because the very reason you claim they're here to seek asylum is the same reason and terror and injustice black people face today. Chicago is working on an issue without addressing the current issue that it has with the communities that are suffering. And we're seeing resources fly out to help, but we're not getting that same type of support at the magnitude we're seeing now. And to expect us to foot the bill and hand over our already limited resources, public parks and school buildings that have been unjustly closed in the first place. Now you're putting a strain on our police officers and stations, obstructing their ability to do their jobs, serve our community, and our community to go into police stations to receive services. In addition, it's inhumane to welcome people only to have them sleeping on floors in buildings and in tents that cannot withstand the wind of Chicago. Brandon Johnson ran on the promise that he would listen to our community. And in the beginning of this crisis stated that he would not re-traumatize those communities that are still suffering from the impact of school closing, redline, and violence. We are here today demanding that the city of Chicago and Brandon Johnson stop disrupting park programs, taking away from our children and families that depend on those services. We want him to stop using public school buildings as housing because they're not zoned as such. And specifically for this building was promised to the community, and our children deserve a high school. A high school, we want to reopen this as one because we do not have a neighborhood high school. That school over there is not a neighborhood school. It's a selective enrollment that actually restricts our neighborhood kids from going. So that's a violation of our civil rights, and we want this building. We pay taxes for it.
Yes.
We are also demanding a full independent audit of how our tax money is being spent.
That's right.
We still have a homeless crisis. Black Americans have the highest rate of homelessness, including youth. We want to know how they're being housed, if they're being housed, what money is being spent on them. We need to know how money is being spent on our education system. When we now see that Chicago public schools and all city agencies are focusing on migrant children.
That's right.
Migrant children deserve to have equal access to education, and so does black children who have historically been denied that right. This is an example of that. Building being closed when there's high school students all around here who have to travel far to go to school. My daughter travels 15 miles outside of her neighborhood to go to school. How dare the city of Chicago try to take this building, make her walk past a building that they're giving to people they're allowed to come here illegally, and have her go past a half-empty building on the corner that she can't go to go to school. And she is a symbol of majority of black children in the city of Chicago that are being denied rights, that are not being seen in this crisis that has been engineered. Again, we're not here saying we're against individual people who cross this border. We're mad at our government for putting them against us.
That's right.
Because that is what's happening.
That's right.
Plain and simple.
Yes.
The residents of South Shore deserve a high quality high school. We deserve services. Our parks deserve to be open. We have present here people from Taylor Park. Taylor Park is located in the Robert Taylor community. We all know what happened with Robert Taylor, right? Mm-hmm. Thousands of black Americans were displaced, and the city of Chicago has been threatening these poor families to take away their park. That's not fair. They have football teams, they have the cheerleading teams. Their kids are engaged socially. They need those services. Let's talk about the West Side. Last night, you guys saw the West Side. We were proud of them.
That's right.
If no one can understand, their black family can understand why they turned up in that meeting. Because it is still an injustice. It is an injustice, it's disingenuous, and it's not right for these people to come into our communities when we are suffering now. Brandon Johnson, go on your word. You cannot be elected into this office and ignore the people who got you here.
That's right.
We're not playing with you.
Say that again.
So today, we're here to say we want justice. We want the city to be more transparent. We want you to stop blatantly throwing the migrants anywhere.
Right.
We don't want tents built in Roseland.
That's right.
We don't want our park programs being taken away.
Send them back.
And we want the city to work with our community in a genuine manner. So today we have, like I said, we have people here who are going to speak from various communities, but we also want to talk about our lawsuit. We're going to first have Frank Avila come up to talk a little bit about the lawsuit, and after him, we're going to have a resident, Jimmy Jones.
Hey, Frank Avila. Hey.
Hey, Frank.
How you doing? You know me, Frank.
I do know you.
All right, then.
Good afternoon. My name's Frank Avila. I'm the attorney for Natasha Dunn, who's one of the plaintiffs. Dr. Jones is one of the plaintiffs, and the South Shore neighbors. The first thing that this lawsuit is about is for South Shore High School to reopen as a high school for this community.
Yes.
And if for some reason that was not possible, which is what they want, not what I want, not what some other community wants, what this community wants, is it for it to be reopened for community purposes.
That's right.
When Rahm Emanuel was mayor, 80% of the school closings were in African American areas.
Right.
And although he will argue that it was because of a decrease in African American population, which may be partially true, he did not care about the communities and what happened in them, and the resources were taken out. This community has a food desert. It's higher in crime than average of other parts of the city. And by the way, somebody came on and attacked me when we were in a press conference last time and said, oh, you're saying the people in back you are criminals. No, that's not what I'm saying. Although some people are criminals who reformed their lives, very few, and they said, now we are reformed our lives and we are ex-convicts. But I'm not saying the people in back of me are criminals. What I'm saying is they recognize that some of them live in higher crime areas. I'm not sure why people cannot understand that nuance, why they can't understand the distinction, and they want to divide people and not have any nuance, any complexity, and simplify the issues. So the first thing, and I'm going to repeat it, is to turn this school back into a school, a high school for this community, so people don't have to travel 15 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, and they can stay here. And for this building to be for the community, which was promised to them, a commitment, an oral contract, a contract with this community. The second thing is, and this community and these plaintiffs also care about the migrants themselves. And this immigration industrial complex and these poverty pimps don't care. Because after the state has spent $500 million, $350 million a quarter, and the city of Chicago has allocated or spent $100 million, first $30 million, then $51 million, and now $20 million for a security company, you should not have people sleeping in tents outside when winter is coming. Winter is coming. You should not have people sleeping on police room floors when you've spent $600 million. That's crazy. I could have put them in the Drake, the Peninsula, the Ritz-Carlton, and the Palmer House, saved the taxpayer dollars 75%, spent 25% of that, give myself $1 million salary, all my friends could have got salaries and fed them, and everybody would be fine. This is an outrageous amount of money, and there needs to be an audit now. There needs to be an audit.
You just said something.
Now, moreover, there also needs to be a commensurate investment into long-term residents, including immigrants, this community, African-American communities, low-income communities, and communities that are deprived of resources, where there's food deserts and crime and lack of schools and lack of opportunities, including South Shore, including the West Side. My son boxes at Taylor Park, which they're going to want to take over and in that program.